Disclaimer: I am not a game developer, designer, programmer, or creator. I am not a professional by any means. I am just someone who likes horror games and enjoys analyzing the things that I like. Also, this video contains flashing lights, some disturbing content, and spoilers for Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion. Hello, my name is Taster, the 256 is silent, and welcome to the Search for the Perfect Horror Game, a series where I acknowledge my strange addiction to horror by making it my personality, studying and analyzing horror games to see what they do right and what they do wrong. In this episode, I will be analyzing Spooky's Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion. And legally, that's what it's always been called, right? Right. But anyways, I'll be analyzing Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion and how it does repetition, because by God it gets repetitive. But that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion is a game about Spooky's mansion of jumpscares. Shocking, I know. It was released on July 28, 2015 by Lag Studios. The game gives a bit of text at the beginning when the player first opens the game, telling them about this ancient mansion where people will dare each other to go and stay a night or something. That doesn't apply to the player though. The player is a historian who wants to study this house for its historical value. The player enters and is introduced to Spooky, a cute ghost who challenges the player to make it through 1,000 rooms of terror. She then phases through the ceiling and the player is left to do just that, exploring 1,000 rooms of terror filled with cardboard cutouts, spiders, dead children, mannequins, McDonald's, and many vengeful spirits who want them all dead. And I'll say it now, you do actually have to go through all 1,000 rooms. I've seen games presenting someone with a big number like 1,000, and then after room like 120 or something, they get put on the actual story doing a psych out. But no, the player actually has to go through all 1,000 rooms to beat the game. Not all at once though. Every 50 to 100 rooms, the player gets a checkpoint, allowing them to save the game, and to stop playing and pick up where they left off. So it seems to be more of a gradual buildup of intensity, where the player, over a period of time, gets from room 10 to room 134 to room 397 to room 500 to room 769 to room 941, so close to the end. But as was previously mentioned, they are not alone. There are multiple threats which will try to kill the player as they go along, but I'll get into that in a bit. So the majority of this game is the same thing. Go through rooms, don't die, reach room 1,000. It's very repetitive, but still remains fun, to the point that the creator made an endless mode, which has no end goal and you just go until you die and get a high score. But how does it make the repetition fun, engaging, and scary? It does this through a few things. 1. The rooms are short. Most rooms only take a few seconds to get through, and since stamina resets upon entering a new room, one could get through a burst of a bunch of rooms in a short span of time. And when the rooms aren't short, they still manage to keep interest. Most longer rooms just have a few turns, but when one is being chased, the sudden turn can add a lot of tension. And when there is more to a room, such as the maze rooms or the labyrinth rooms, the tension can be ramped way up. 2. The stories. Throughout the game, the player can find a few pieces of paper, which, when interacted with, will give them a page of text. These pages tell stories which range from a hopeless romantic to a scientist who studied directly under Spooky in her scary lab. These don't really help add to the horror, but they do add to the engagement of the game by giving additional content that may keep the player going so they can find more notes. They also add to the universe of Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion, as they are proof that people have gone in before the player. 3. Save points. As previously mentioned, every 50 to 100 rooms, the player gets a checkpoint room, usually designated as an elevator. These give the player a moment to rest on their journey, as unlike other rooms where there's always a chance an enemy could start chasing them, these rooms will not let you be chased by enemies. Even if an enemy starts to chase in the room before and should give chase to you for the next 15 to 30 rooms, that will be cut short by entering an elevator room. This gives the player the motivation to do just a few more rooms, as I mean, I'm already on room 384, I might as well do 60 more rooms, just to reach the elevator. It also gives the player smaller goals to work towards than 1,000 rooms. Just do 50 or 100. That slowly builds up until eventually there are only 100 rooms left, and at this point it doesn't feel as daunting to just finish it. 4. Special rooms. Throughout the mansion, the player will find special rooms, typically the 10th room of every 100 rooms, with the exception of room 10 and 110. These each serve a special purpose to introduce new elements to the game, which I'll get into in a minute. What I like about these is how they wait until room 10 of each 100 rooms to show off a special room. If a player stops after a set of 100 rooms, then they aren't immediately thrown into a special room when they come back to the game. They get a bit of time to remember how to play and what they're doing. And once the player catches on to the pattern of 10th room after every 100 rooms, those 10 rooms leading up to it will build tension, as the player will be given time to wonder what they'll face next. The rooms themselves are used to introduce new enemies. Each one has a distinct design, so even a new player who doesn't know about special rooms can tell, yep, something's different. They introduce new enemies, and each enemy's special room also tells how to fight each enemy, and with most of them, tell the background of the entity. On top of everything else, the closeness of the special rooms to each save point means that if a player fails to figure out how the creature works, it's only a short walk to try again. The short iteration cycle helps make each enemy easier to understand and deal with. But this doesn't make the enemies less scary, at least to me. Speaking of... 5. The Specimens. There are 13 main unique creatures located throughout the game, referred to by the game as Specimen. These are what chase the player through the halls. The specimen consists of a goop ghoul, a big centipede, dead children, a wrinkly thumb, wood, a wall, dear God, John Carpenter's 1982 The Thing, Beef Satan, Luigi's Mansion, Amnesia, and of course, a cardboard cutout. Each one has different quirks, such as how Specimen 2 creates puddles in which you walk and run at roughly the same speed, so it's beneficial to stop running while you're in these to save your stamina, or like how Specimen 6 only moves when not observed, so you need to watch him and feel your way around the room. Granted, the way of dealing with most of these specimen is just to run away when they appear, but they all have subtle quirks which can help increase your chances of survival if you follow their rules. Some have more intense quirks, such as Specimen 11 turning doors invisible, or Specimen 7 filling the whole room slowly over time. But they each have the end goal of freaking you out and trying to get you killed. 6. The music. Each specimen, on top of having their own design and method for how they work, has their own theme. These themes play the whole time in which they chase the player, and play as soon as they start chasing. Now, one could look up the soundtrack online and listen to each specimen's theme to know when they start playing, but I would like to imagine that that's not what most people end up doing, at least at first. The point is that throughout the game, music tends to play in the background, and while a lot of it is music for the specimen, some is simply background music. And when a new song starts up when entering a new room, at least for me, I tend to have a momentary spike of fear that I'm being chased. Even when the music isn't telling of a chase, it's still quite unnerving to listen to. On top of all that, when the music stops playing and all that's left is the silence, it always gives me this reminder of how big and absurd my surroundings are. It makes me feel uncomfortable. The quiet is almost worse than any monster chase. It makes you more aware of your situation. All of these aspects together combine to create the fear and dread that made this game so popular when it came out. Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion, released by Lag Studios in July of 2015, is a game about making it through 1,000 rooms of terror. These rooms get very repetitive, but this works for the game as it manages to use this to up the horror aspect. Overall, the game is decently scary and plenty fun to play. On top of that, it's free, making the game as a whole that much more worth it. As far as horror games go, I rate it a 7 out of 10. Personally, I feel an 8 is more fitting for the game as a whole, but looking at it solely as a horror game, 7 seems more accurate. It is scary and it has some great monster designs and interactions, but I feel most of them just being run away takes from the horror a bit. However, I am by no means saying anything bad about the game. It is a very fun horror game and has managed to get me a few times, but it's just not that scary. Although, that does seem kind of fitting for the game as a whole, with Spooky being a cute ghost who wants to be scary. It is definitely worth a play, and is a good horror game to get used to how horror games work, as really the only common horror trope it seems to miss out on is having a flashlight so terrible it's more unhelpful than it would be to not have one at all. This was a fun one to do, and this has always been one of my personal favorite horror games. I do highly recommend you play it if you haven't, because again, it is free. But anyways, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you feel there's any way I can improve, please let me know. With all that said, thank you for watching and have a great day. This deserves a drink of water. This water doesn't taste very romantic. Kind of metallic.